Perek Chaf Bet, the 22nd chapter of the book of Mishlei, Nivchar Shem Me'osher Rav, Mikesef Umizahav Chen Tov. So a reputation, the way that your name is mentioned, is preferable to great wealth. Chen, grace, is better than silver and gold. Ashir Varash Nifgashu Osech Hulam Adonai. Rich man and poor man meet. The Lord made them both. God made the wealthy and God made the poor. And God is, the verse seems to be saying is, rich man, you find the poor man, go help him, meet him. Don't let him live like a poor man. Arum ra'ah. Ra'ah v'nistar ufitayim avru v'ne'enashu. The shrewd man saw trouble and took cover. Arum, shrewd also means naked. And Achash is known as the most arum back all the way in early part of Breshit in the story of Adam and Chava and the Gan Eden. Arum means naked. Arum also means to be shrewd. The simple kept going and paid the penalty, right? The Arum, the person who was naked, knew that, to stay away from the sin. They knew what to do. And the naked person, the simple person, didn't know. Ekev anava yirat Adonai osher v'chavod v'chayim. So, right, humility, what happens because of humility? Humility leads to the fear of God. It leads to wealth, right? Osher, it leads to honor, and it leads to either a long life or a meaningful life. Continuing in verse 5, Tzinim pachim b'derech ikei shomer nafsho yerchak mehem. Thorns and sneers are in the path of the crooked. The person who values life will keep far from them. He will stay away from the thorns. He will know to stay on the direct path. Here we have probably the most well-known verse in this chapter. Chanoch lanar al pi darko, gam ki yazkin lo yasur mimena. Teach a student in the way that he should go. And if you do so, he will not swerve from even in the old age. And there's much, really, really a lot that's been written about this verse. And the basic understanding is that you need to you can't just educate everybody in the same way. It's chanoch lanar al pi darko. Educate a student according to his way, not according to your way, right? There are different students who learn in different ways. They understand things in different ways, different things that they're motivated by, et cetera, et cetera. Individualized student plan, something that they didn't have when you guys were in school, didn't have when I was in school either, but seems to be much more common today. Ashir birashim yimshol v'eved lovel ishmal. The rich rule the poor, and the borrower is the slave to the lender. You'll never pay off that mortgage. Zorea avla yiksor aven v'shevet evrato yichle. The person who sows injustice, he will reap misfortune. The rod of the wrath, right? His rod of wrath shall fail. And again, I've said it not too many times. If it was only so simple, if it was only the case that the person who acts so terribly and sows injustice will reap misfortune. Tov ayin hu yivorach hinatan milachmo ladal. The generous man is blessed. This person with the tov ayin, who sees good, who sees the good in things, who is generous, who is giving. Why? Because he gives from his bread to the poor. Right? His blessing is come in advance. God knows that this person is going to give to the poor. He's given to the poor in the past. We trust he's going to give to the poor in the future. Garesh leitz v'yatzei madon v'yishpot din v'kalon. So if you kick out gerish, like gerish in the word for divorce, if you expel the leitz, the scoffer, the cynic, then what happens? All the fighting leaves. Get rid of that contentious personality. Quarrel and arguing, they cease, they disappear. Ohev tahor lev, we're in verse 11, pasuk Yud, chen sfatav re'ehu melech. So a person who is tahor lev, person who is of pure heart, whether this is heart is emotion, whether heart is intellectual, as we've talked about different ways that the word lev is used. His speech is chen. It's gracious, it's kind. Why? Because he has the king as his companion. The king here, presumably, is not a allusion to Shlomo HaMelech, the author of Mishlei, but more to God. The eyes of God watch the wise man, and God, he subverts the words of the treacherous, the bogey, the treacherous person who says bad things about others, but God is going to subvert their plans. Amar, Atzel ariva chutz b'toch rechovot e ratzeach. What does the atzel, the atzlan, the lazy person say? He says, there's a lion in the street. I shall be killed if I step outside. Sounds like an excuse. I'm not going to go outside. I'm going to stay here. The commentaries, Rashi and others say it's referencing to he should go study Torah, but he's making an excuse. He doesn't want to go out. He doesn't want to study. There's a lion in the street. If I try to go out, I'm going to get punished. I'm going to get punished. I'm going to get injured. Shucha amuka ki zarot ze'um Adonai yipal sham. The mouth of the forbidden woman. Zar means something that's strange or alien, so forbidden. What is it? It's like a pea. It's like a pit, a deep pit, a bore. It's like a, and the person who is doomed by it, right? He was doomed by the Lord, falls into it. God doesn't protect the person who is willing, who is ready, and who is doesn't do what is necessary to keep themselves away from falling for that lust, falling for that alluring pit. Another word that we have here, we had earlier, we had the scoffer. Here we have again, ivelet, this folly, what we brought up many times, the folly, the scoffer, the lates, the fool, the dullard. Ivelet kishura belev na'ar shevet musar yachikenu mimenu. And again, one of the themes we've had many times, if folly settles into the heart of a young man, the rod of discipline will remove it, right? Sometimes we've talked about in this book many times, the musar, the rebuke, the maybe, I like to say suggestion, as opposed to perhaps excoriate and rebuke, right? That is what sometimes is necessary. Somebody doesn't want to listen. Somebody doesn't want to do anything. So you need to suggest, and sometimes you have to be a little harsher, says this book. I know it's not necessarily in vogue, the full measure of probably what it means in this book. O sheikh, we're in verse 16. O sheikh da laharbot lo notein la'ashir ach l'machsor. So if you profit by not paying the poor, if you profit by withholding, eventually probably you pay them, but oshek is sort of the fraudulent prohibition in the Torah, lo ta'ashok. So if you do that, what is it like? It's like making gifts to the rich. It's pure loss, right? So you have to give the poor. You can't withhold from the poor. You're keeping it with the rich. You're keeping it for yourself. I think back to this podcast I heard by Malcolm Gladwell. He had these podcasts. I don't know if he puts out more seasons, revisionist history. And one of them was about donations that are made to large universities and how it is such a waste of money. And he talks about their, I think it was maybe somebody at Stanford who started a program, and he raised $1 billion or $2 billion, and it was for like 10 or 12 people a year. Something, and the giving $1 million to Harvard or giving $1 million to whatever it is, it's a drop in the bucket. It makes no difference whatsoever. And he was talking about a local state school university where a wealthy person gives $1 million, $2 million, and all of a sudden they can have a physics department and a lab like they've never had before. So sometimes if you're giving gifts to the rich, what's the point? So take that ear, bring it close, listen to the words of the sages, pay attention to my wisdom. That's not me telling you to listen to the sages and to my wisdom. That is the words of the author. It's good that you listen to those words, and not that they go in one ear and go out the next, but that they stay inside. They're tishmereim. You watch them in your beten, in your belly, inside of you. And that, in addition to that, that they are on your lips, that they're the way that they guide, in a sense, your behavior and the way you're going to act. And what are those words in verse 19? Liot badonai mivtachecha odaticha hayom afata, that you put your trust, your bitachon, in God. And that is what I'm telling you. Afata, even you. Do so. And if we think of this again, Shlomo speaking to his sons, the princes, his son who will be king, Rechavam. Very easy when you're in that position of great power to not put your trust in God. I'm the man in charge. He's telling them, even you guys who have everything that I'm bequeathing to you, you need to remember this as well. Halo chatavti lecha, verse 20, shalishim bimo eitzot vidat. I wrote down for you threefold lore. I wrote down for you all of this wise counsel, whether this refers to this book, whether it refers to others who say, shlishim, like shalosh, the Torah, the Nevi'im, Uktuvim. Now, that wouldn't make sense for that to be fully Shlomo. We, of course, don't have all those books at this time, but there are different aspects. There's the Torah, there's already prophecy, there's Ketuvim, there's already inspired writing like this book by the time of Shlomo's life, Shir Hashirim also, and Kohelet. So I've written down, I've given you all of these different ways. And then what did he say earlier? There's Chanoch Lanar Al Pi Darko. Some people learn from the Torah, some people learn from the Nevi'im, some people learn from the Ketuvim. People learn from different ways, different, but I've written down for you. Listen, Lo Adiachak Shot Imrei Emet Lashiva Marim Emet L'Shol Checha. So that you know what is right, you know the words that are truth, and that you will be able to, give a reply to him who sent you. Presumably, at least the way that I understand that verse, means to God. You'll be able to respond to God. You'll be able to respond properly, that you are following, that you have listened to these words. Al tigzal dal kidalhu vial tidake ani vashar. No, he gets back to what was said earlier about the poor. Don't rob the wretched. Don't rob the poor because he's wretched. It's so easy to take advantage of people who are poor. Don't crush the poor man in the gate. Don't do that to this person who's already on the bottom. It's so easy. Because God will take up their cause and God will despoil those who despoil them of life. We have this in the Torah. Similarly, the idea of a pledge. We talked about a pledge a couple of chapters ago. If you get the pledge from the person who borrowed money from you, you have to give him back. His pledge was his pajamas for nights. What's he going to sleep in? He's going to be cold. You have to give him back his blanket. And the Torah warns there, because if you don't listen, God says, Shomei Ani, I'm going to listen to what he says. I'm going to listen to his whining and crying about the way that you treated him. So that's not the only reason you should help the poor and not take advantage of them. But God will hear their cries. Verse 24, Al titra et bal afi et ish chemot lo tavo. Don't associate with an irascible man. Don't go about with one who is hot-tempered. Be careful who your company is. Pen te'elaf orchotav v'lakachta mokesh l'navdecha. Lest you learn his ways and you fall into his trap, you too become this way. Al tihi betokechaf be'orvim masao. Don't be one of those who give their hand, who stand surety for debts. Don't be like those persons who are constantly collecting. Im ein lecha lishalem lama yikach mishkavecha mitachtecha. Lest your bed be taken from under you when you have no money to pay. Be careful with your money. You guys are rich guys, but if you spend, as was said earlier, you got to be watch the luxury. Don't be that person who borrows what they can't give back. Al tasei gvul olam asher asu avotecha. Don't remove the ancient boundary stone that your ancestors set up. Right? So don't go back on what was said before, whether this is generally said about Judaism in general, whether this is an idea about to the king specifically. There are boundaries. Think back to the book of Dvarim, to Parshat Shoftim, when we're introduced to the idea of a king and we put guardrails on them. Don't have too many wives, don't have too much wealth, right? You can't overstep your bounds. It's certainly something that David did. And he paid the price for Bathsheba, the ultimate overstepping of his bounds. He asks, who's that beautiful woman? They say, she's a married woman. That is to say, you cannot have her. And what does he do? Of course, he sends for her. Or Shlomo, who goes and has multiple wives, well beyond what the Torah allows for a king, which allows too many. Or actually, too many, it allows many, and he goes way, way, way beyond that, and that causes his downfall from who he is. So he may have. This may be before, this may be after, but he's saying, be very careful with what the boundaries that were set up, especially you who are in positions of power and wealth. Continue the last verse in the chapter. Chazit ish mahir b'mlachto lefnei melachim yityatzav bal yityatzev lefnei chashukim. See a man who's skilled at his work, and he will attend upon kings. He will not attend upon obscure men. The way that I would describe this last verse is, the cream always rises to the top. The people with great talent, and this book is not just about talent, it's also about hard work. But if you have talent, ultimately you will not be languishing. Ultimately, you will be working for the king. And so here we know there is talent, but there's also 10,000 hours of practice. You want to get to Carnegie Hall, is practice is hard work. And so why he doesn't say it in this specific verse, it is said many times in this book. And here we have a chapter again, like the opening chapters, Bani, 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 my son, my sons, listen to what I'm saying. Here Shlomo's telling him as well, don't go too far. Don't be too arrogant. Understand your place. Don't take advantage of the poor. If you do, things probably will not end up very good for you. And if you remember the story, the big mistake of Shlomo's son Rechavam, when the people say, we don't have these big building campaigns anymore, we're not building a Beit HaMikdash, lower the taxes, lower the amount of months that we have to work in the, cutting down trees and send them down. And what does Rechavam do? He says, I am going to be harsher than my father. I'm going to tax you even more. And that immediately causes a rift and a break in his kingdom and a split. And so presumably doesn't listen to his father. And as a result, the kingdom of David and his dynasty was never the same.